Hi everyone, welcome back to my basic Fire tutorial series. Now we are in module 2, HTTP interaction and searching. My name is Ratpanyawat and I'm a GP doctor working at Thai Health Information Standard Development Center, and you can reach me in this channel. For today's agenda, we will be talking about HTTP interaction in Fire. An overview of RESTful API in Fire. You can use 5 HTTP methods: get, post, put, patch, and delete. When you send an HTTP request, every request will get a status code in return. If it's a success, the server will return the requested resources, but if not, it will return an operation outcome resource. The general structure of a Fire HTTP interaction is as the following. You have to specify the verb, and this part is the URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. And every URI must have a base URL. It's the same here, file base. If you use Happify, here is the base URL. And if you want to make an interaction at a system level, you specify just the base. But if you want to make an interaction at the type level, you specify the type. And for an instance level, you specify the ID of that instance. And you can put the parameters here after the URI. The HTTP requests have several components as shown in this picture. They will have to specify the method, that is get, post, put, patch, and delete, as I mentioned in the last slide, and the URI. But there are also 2 more parts, that is the request header and the request body. In the request header, you put an additional information like a content type to specify if it's a JSON or XML, and the request body, if you want to create or update, you put the resource content here. If the HTTP interaction is success, it will return the status code and the resource that you requested from the server. But if it fails, it will return a status code as well, but it will come with the operation outcome resource to tell you where the error is. This is the list of Fire RESTful interactions. They can categorize mainly into 3 levels: the instance level interaction, the type level, and the whole system level. I will go through all of this one by one. The read interaction. When you want to read a resource instance, you use a get method to get the resource instance. As in this format, get the base URL, you specify the type and the ID because this is the instance level interaction, right? And the example will become like this. If you want to get the patient resource who has the logical ID as 678, you send a get request to this URL. For example, for now I already running a Happify on my local machine, and this is the home page. So I will use the Postman to send the request to the server. Let's say that from this format, I want to get the patient with the ID as 390. So I put it here, and then I send a get request. Done. Then I get that resource instance. If I copy it here, put it here, then I will see that particular resources. Alright, so that is the get request, the most basic one. Okay, the next one is version read. Version read is to get a resource instance in a specific version, because in each resource instance we can have several versions. And here is the syntax. You put the underscore history and the version ID. For example, this one. From the previous example, I send the get request and I get it here, get the resource back, and the ID is this one. but the version ID is this one, right? So I will, let's say that I update some of it, like maybe the name of the patient to be Lorenzo 222, like this. And then I have to put it here first to show you that there can have several versions. So as you can see, the version ID became 2, right? If I get it back here, it will get the latest version. But if I want to get the previous version, I have to do something like this. Then I will get the previous version before the edit. So that is the version read. Read a specific version. This one is in the slide. Okay, the next one is update. Update is for replacing a resource instance with a whole new one by including the new resource in the body of a request message. And then the server will create a resource instance with the same ID but with a new version ID. As you can see from the previous example, actually I already did that. So you send a put request to the URL of that resource with the ID, and then it will update. Let's say that I remove this. No, I remove this because it's how it will auto-generate anyway. And then I change this one to be Lorenzo 333. Then I put it here to the same patient, the same resource instance. Done. I have the version 3. And if I came here, you will see that this one is also auto-generate anyway, like I said. And the name of the patient became Lorenzo 333, right? So this is update. There are something that you have to remember when you do an update is that you must include the ID element in the updated resource. For example, this one, I have to specify an ID, like this. If I remove this and I set it to a server, it will throw an error because the resource must contain an ID. And when you update with the put method, it will replace the whole resource instance with a new one. So, for example, if I remove all of this and update only to this one to, let's say, Thai, and the ID is 390, if I remember, like this one. Oh, maybe I should copy the previous one, like this. Okay, so I will send this one to the server by putting it. Boom, it's success. And when you get the resource, actually it's this one. You get the resource. This is the content of the whole resource. It only has this one because updating with put method will replace the whole resource with the content of the resource you send. So, right. So let's bring back the previous version back. This one. All right. Send. Put it. Then I got a version 5 that have everything back. So that is put. If the server permit, put can be used for creating a resource with a defined ID. This is called update as create. But in the ID of the resource must include at least one alphabet. What does that mean? Because normally when you create a resource in Fire, if you use a post method that I will talk about later, when you create a resource, even though you specify the ID like this, it will got ignored. What does it mean? This one, I send this one. Okay, now I have the ID, the new ID, even though I specify this one. But in some case, you may want to specify the ID because it's easier to manage. Let's say that I want to get a patient, but I want to get it easily, like when I know the URL of the patient, I can make a request without using the business identifier, like in here, like in here. Maybe I want the URL of the resource to be like this, A1234. I want to get the patient resource instance with this URL. So I want this resource to have this ID. So maybe it's easier for me to manage in later. So if I want to do that, I can do it here. I can put it here like this. But it has to be a put method, and the server must allow you to do that. So when you send it, and the status code is 201 created, and you got a new patient ID version 1 with the ID A1234. So if you get this one, then you get the resource you created. This is how to create a resource with a specified ID. But the condition is you might have one alphabet, at least like this. You cannot like this because the server afraid that it might crash with the auto-generate ID. So it force you to have at least one alphabet. In case you want to update and it fail, you will get a status code. Most of them will start with the number 4, 400, 401, 404. You don't have to remember this, and when you face it, you can go back here and see what does it mean. And there is another way to update that is called conditional update. It's an updating an existing resource based on some identifier criteria rather than by the logical ID. What does it mean? And this is the syntax. So previously, let's say that I want to update this guy, right? I have to know the ID of this guy, and then I put it here and specify the ID, right? If you remember. But in case I don't want to do that way, and I want to update based on some other value, like for example, the hospital number of the patient, I want to search for that particular HN hospital number and then update only that hospital number. What does that mean? Okay, let's say that I copy it here, and then I change it a little bit, the identifier here, this one, maybe 7777. All right, and then I put it to the server. All right, I got the new version already. So I will remove this, and then I will use the social security number for update. This one, and identifier equal this system, and specify the value like this. Boom, I got the new version without specify the ID of that resource instance, right? So I got the new version already. Okay, let's change it to, maybe I change this one. maybe I change the name to become 444 like this. Oh, and I send it here. Oh, we get the new version. And the name of the patient is became Lorenzo 444, right? So this is conditional update. Search for some criteria and then update if found. But there are 5 possible outcomes of this interaction. If it no match, the search criteria here doesn't match, and you doesn't provide the ID in the resource you send in the body, it will create a new resource. But if it no match and ID provide, it will do it as a update as create. Do you remember update as create? This one, create with specify ID, right? But if it's one match and no ID or ID provide and it match like this one, it will update the resource. But if it's one match, but if it's match, but the ID here and the ID in the server doesn't match, it will reject. It will cause 400 bad requests. But if it multiple match like this, it will have a 412 precondition fail. Let's see here, T09 and send. I think I have to have that version 4 or something. Oh no, 5. And then I use this one. Identifier system value. And the value here. And I try to update with this resource. When I send it, oh, it get when I put it. Okay, error. Match 3 resource 412 precondition fail. So that is a conditional update. The next interaction is patch. If you remember, put will update the whole resource with the resource that you send, but patch will update only some part that is updated. The server will create a resource instance with the same ID, but the new version ID. And you have to change the header's content type to include the patch operation. I totally forget to mention that, like I said in some previous video, when you send the HTTP request, you have to specify the content type like this. But if it's patch, you have to have more than here. And you have to have a word like this. But however, I cannot do the patch operation in Happy File on my local server. I don't know what is the problem. Maybe it's problem on my side, or maybe I have to config something in the server. So I don't know how to do a patch interaction. So most of the time I use put interaction. And delete interaction, this one is quite straightforward. It's for deleting a resource instance. The outcome is that the user won't be able to access the current version of the resource. However, they will still be able to access the previous version. And here is the syntax. What does it mean? So I want to delete the 9.0. Okay, I will get first. The current version is version 7 and the content is here. So if I delete now, what? Oh, I cannot delete because there is some resource referencing. So I have to find other resource Okay, I will get some resource to send. General patient. Can I send this resource? Are there any reference? No, I think I can send this resource. Okay, let's post it first. Okay, create it. Okay, so if I want to delete this resource, I just delete it. Okay, it will show 200. Okay, and successfully delete one resource. If I want to get this resource, it will show error was deleted. However, if I want to really access it, I can do something like this, and I still can access it. Because basically when you delete a resource, you create a new version of it, and it's version 2, and that is the deleted instance, but the version 1 is still exists in the server, so you can still access it. The resource can be brought back by a put method. What I mean, okay, I copy the version 1 here, and then I put it back like this. Done. It got a version 3 and the same exact content. Like I said, the first version is version 1, the version 2 is the one that was deleted, and version here is the one that we just updated. So the deleted resource can be brought back with the put method. And as you remember, this one we cannot delete because other resource is referencing it. So we have to remove this one first before we can remove this one. But I will not do that now. Okay, and you can also conditional delete based on some selection criteria. It's quite the same as the conditional update. This one, let me update it a little bit so that it's not crash with other thing. Maybe this one, and I put it back to this one. All right, so now I will delete based on the identifier, the search parameter. So system is OID wrap like this, and the value is this one. It will find the resource with this identifier value in this identifier system. If it found, it will delete it. Boom, it will delete. It already deleted. So if we trying to get that element, the resource was deleted, right? There are two possible outcomes. If no match or one match, the server delete that matching resource. But if it multiple match, this one will depend on server's configuration. Some may choose to delete all the matching. Some may choose to return 412 precondition fail. And that is almost all the interaction at the instance level. For history, I will talk about it later. So for now, we will go to the type level interaction. Create is straightforward. For creating a resource, you do it by sending a post request and include the resource in the request body. And you must specify the type in the URL because now with a type level interaction, so you don't have to specify the ID of the instance. Just type is enough. If you want to create a resource with a specific ID, like I said earlier, you must use a put method. It is update as create. So to demonstrate, let's grab some maybe organization. Example, HL7 itself here, and JSON, and remove the reference to, otherwise will cause some error because it cannot find that reference. Okay, here. Then to do it, include a resource in the body and specify the type at the URL and send a post request here, or even you put an ID here and send. You will get 201 created, but the ID is this one anyway because it doesn't care what you specify. And this is the resource, you send it to the server. So that is created. It's pretty simple. Conditional create. This one is quite similar to conditional update and conditional delete, but the way you do it is different. So you have to include this if none exists here, but you include it in a header like this. I will try to create this HL7 again. Oh, it doesn't have identifier. Okay, let's grab a quick identifier here so that we can update it. Oh, so many identifier. Just this one and value lat. Okay. Okay, valid. And then the last one is 5072. Let me update it a bit. Send. Oh, I forget to include the ID here. Include the ID here. Okay, success with this system. So I will try to create again. And the value is rat. So basically what does this do is that it will check if this resource with this business identifier is already exists or not. If it already exists, then it will not create. So also I can send the same resource. If we don't include this one, you can send it. I love to. Okay, it will get the new resource. Send it again, get the new resource. But if you specify the business identifier here with the value rat in the system, this one. So I will try to post the any resource, it doesn't matter. If I send a post request here, it will return 200. Okay, because it one match. It doesn't create the 5075, the new resource. It's still the same ID because it matched. If it's no match, if this one has no match, it will create. If it's one match, it will ignore and post the 200. But if it's multiple match, like this one that I created two resource a moment ago, right? If you remember, send it. It will return yes because it's match two resource 412 preconditional fail. The next interaction in the type level is search. It's searching a resource instance by using a search parameter. It's quite similar to when you do a conditional update, create, delete things. You have a search parameter that you can use, and the server will return a bundle resource with a type as search set. Search is an interaction for both the type level and the system level as well. I will have more detail about this in the next part of this module. When you do a search interaction, you can do it with a get method and also a post method. The syntax is a bit different. Get base type and parameter here. But for post, you do it this way. For now, I will use a get method. So if you want to get all the list of the patient in the server, you can use get and base and patient like this one. Like our organization, this one. And you will have all the patient in this server. So in my local server, I have 21 organization resource. And you can see that the response is a bundle resource with the type as search set. So that is search interaction. And that is all for the type level interaction. The next one is the whole system interaction. So we will start with the capability. This interaction is for asking about the capability statement or a terminology statement from the server. If you remember from the last lecture, capability statement is a resource to describe what functionality that the server support, what resource it support, for example. So if you want to get the capability statement, you send a get request to a base URL like this, and you put the word metadata. Doesn't need anymore. Send it, and you will get the capability statement. And it's very long resource that describe how the server support many things in it. And there are three modes of the capability interaction. I would say I'm not quite expert in this. Normally I just use metadata. So you can explore more about this. And next is batch and transaction. It's an interaction mainly used with a bundle for sending multiple resources at one time as a bundle. And to use it, you specify the word batch or transaction in the bundle.type. And if it's a transaction, all entry in that bundle must succeed in order to perform the interaction. Let's say that there are 10 resources with 10 interaction in that transaction bundle. If there are one resource in that bundle that is failed, then the whole 10 resource will fail. But if it's a batch, it will send it one by one. Some might succeed and some might fail. Both of them have different use, but most of the time I use transaction because when you send a resource, most of the time there will be some reference between resource inside that bundle. So if you send it and some of them fail, you will face some problem about referential integrity, like the one that some resource want to reference cannot found on the server, and that is pretty difficult to fix. So most of the time I just use transaction. And back to the history interaction, is the one that we skip this whole time, but actually it's in all three levels of interaction. When you use it, the server will return a bundle with type history. And the first one is when you want to use it with the instance level. This one is for type level, and this one is system level. What does it mean? If you remember back to this patient, okay, this patient, if the current version is 7, right? If we specify 6 like it, we get the instance of the version 6. But if we don't specify anything, this one, we will get the bundle type history with all the version of that resource instance. Same here. If I remove it here, I will get all the history of the patient resource of the patient type. And if I put it here like this, I will get all the history of the server. So that it is the history interaction. This is a summary I copied from the file specification. There are a lot of interaction, right? And this is a path for each interaction. And this is the HTTP verb for that interaction. And there are many other things. You can look at it from the specification. The next one is file bundle. Bundle is bundling multiple resource instances into a single package for exchanging purpose. And there are various types of bundle with multiple purpose. The bundle will contain an entry element with multiple entry objects inside that. So entry 1, entry 2, and each entry contains a resource and a request to what to do with that resource. Actually, there is response as well, but we will not mention about it here. We will focus on resource and request. For this class, we will use a transaction bundle for demonstration. Like I said earlier, that I like to use transaction because if a transaction succeeds, all entry inside that transaction succeed. But if you use batch, some might succeed and some might fail. So I think it's more difficult to manage. So how to create a file bundle? The first thing to do is put all resource in an entry array, this entry array. And if there is no referencing between resource, actually you don't have to specify the full URL element. But if there is a reference between resource, you must specify the full URL. There are two ways to do that. You use the absolute URL. That in most cases, when we create a new resource instance, we don't know the absolute URL. The one that we use more often is the temporary URL. You can do it with the UUID, Universal Unique Identifier, or OID. I'm not sure what does this stand for. And when you create a resource with a temporary ID, after those resources that you send it to the server were created, the ID that you put it temporary will be replaced with the ID from the server. If there is an ID element in the resource that you want to put inside the entry, you have to remove it first. Otherwise, it will be an error when you're referencing. Unless you want to send a put request, in that case, you have to specify the ID. And the last thing is you specify the method and the URL in the request object here. And I will demonstrate how to create a bundle for you. I think in an earlier video, we have created a file resource for some demo purpose. This one. So, okay, I will create a transaction bundle by copying this thing, this one here, and put it here, JSON, and bundle. This one we don't need. The type is bundle, and here is the entry. So the structure is this one. So it's pretty simple for a transaction bundle. And this one is each entry inside that entry element. So I want only one entry here. And inside that entry is each resource that you want to send. You have to specify the URL. Okay, we'll remove here. And this is the resource content. And this is the request object, that what you want to do with this resource. So for this one, okay, I think this one. So you put the content of the resource here in the middle. I will remove this first. So how many resources? 8. I will create 8 placeholder. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the first one is patient. And like I said, remove ID first. And then you grab everything here and put it inside this one. And you specify the resource type for this. Finish for the first resource. Next one is, let's say, practitioner. You remove the ID here. Grab this one and put it inside this one. And it's practitioner. Next one is organization. Remove this and put it here. Organization. And the next one is encounter. We remove the ID and grab everything here, and it's encounter. And next is condition. We remove an ID and put it here. Condition. Next, diagnostic report. Remove ID. I think I skipped someone. It's okay. We will figure it later. observation. And the last one, let's format it a bit. Okay. So we have patient. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. This one I skipped it. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. All resource that we want to send is here now. You may feel that, oh, there is a lot of process to create all of this, but I would say in the real situation, the real implementation, you don't have to do this. All of this will be auto-generated by a client. But for this course, what I want from you is you understand how it was created. So the next step is we fix every resource that's referent to other resource. So how to do that? All right. There are many things. Like I said, actually we don't have to specify the ID if it wasn't referent with other resource, but I think it might easier if we just generate an ID for every resource. So this one patient, this one practitioner, and next one organization, next one is encounter, next one is condition, next one diagnostic report, and next one is observation, and we have 2 observation. The last one is observation for FPS. For the UUID, you can get it randomly generated like this, and you put it here. Now you change it to plain text, and you put it here, so it becomes like this. You can put it here like this for all of them, or actually you can even do it like this. Practitioner, just any word is fine. Or you can use it OID. I'm not sure which one is the correct, but both of them work, what I know. And this one is encounter. Okay, I will copy it here, and here. The next one is condition. Next one is diagnostic report. it doesn't matter. It's just a word for temporary referencing. No case specified is important. You can put it ABC or other value as well. OBS, BP, OBS, FPS, like this. So I will keep it like this for demonstration. So the next thing is you find everything that is referencing each other. Actually, I should keep the ID for easier editing later, but it's okay. I already removed it. So every element that is referencing to other resource will have the reference like this. So the patient is this one. So we have to replace it. Replace this one with this one. With this one and just replace all. The next reference is practitioner. This one. Replace it with this one. Replace all. I think next one is organization. This one. Replace with this one. Replace all. And next one is, oh, I forget. Okay, diagnostic report, and is okay. It fasting blood, so it must be this one. The replace this one with this one and replace. And then the next one is I think we already replaced it all. So that is how to create a bundle. Seems complicated, right? Yeah, remember that in the real implementation, you don't have to do this manually. So let's post it to the base URL as a bundle. Send an error. It cannot find this thing. It cannot find this one. Oh, reference is wrong somehow. FPS. Oh, I forget to remove this thing. This ID, as I told you, to remove. All right. Error. Okay, this one is. I don't know why this happened, but the last time that I tried is also error like this. If I send it as a single resource, it doesn't have this problem. But when it became the bundle, it has this problem. So it's a problem here, interpretation. If you remove it, you send it again, then it will 200 okay, and each resource will be created, right? So that is when I remove this interpretation things, somehow it works. And is observation 565106 and get this one, right? This one. So if I do it this way, it's an observation, and I put it here. You will see that it's exactly the same one, this one, but this time if I put it here, it works without any error. So I don't think it's a problem with the structure of the file resource, but it's a problem when I communicate with the server somehow. Yeah, but that is how it is for now. Maybe they fix it in the future. So that is how to create a bundle transaction. All right, that is the end for today. As always, if you have any question, feel free to ask me in the comment of the video, or you can ask me in the class next Wednesday. So thank you very much for attending. Bye bye.